episode 199, The Power of Commitment, with Kamden Hainsworth.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
In today's episode of Latter-day Life Coaches, Heather Rackham sits down with Kamden Hainsworth, an ADHD life and mindset coach, to talk about the power of commitment. Whether it's in relationships, religion, or life's everyday choices, Kamden shares deep insights into how commitment can shape our purpose and drive true life satisfaction. Together, they explore the challenges of decision fatigue, the fear of commitment, and offer practical tools to move forward with confidence, especially for those with ADHD. Tune in to discover how clarity, commitment, and a little bit of courage can transform your life. Enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches. I'm Heather Rackham and I am joined today by Kamden Hainsworth. Hey Kamden, how you doing?
So good. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Oh, I love it. I love it when she's here. I love your energy and I love everything that you bring to this community. So thank you. Thanks for being here. And I'm excited. We were chit-chatting a little bit about what we were going to talk about today. And this is going to be good. So before we go there, I want you to introduce yourself if you can. She's been on with me before. So if you haven't heard that episode, you should go back and listen to it. Have you been on a couple times? I feel like you've been on.
I think once.
Okay,
yeah,
once
now. Mm-hmm.
So you can catch that. But if you haven't heard that episode, can you introduce yourself for us, Kamden, so people can learn about you?
Yeah, of course. I'll remind you as well. I am Kamden Hainsworth, like Heather said. I'm an ADHD coach. I would say I'm an ADHD life coach and mindset coach. I help people usually in parenting ADHDers, adults with ADHD in life, in business, in relationships. And I got into this particular niche when I was diagnosed with ADHD at 36 years old. And even though I have a daughter who was diagnosed many years ago, it really didn't take grasp on my soul the way it did when I started to recognize just how significant this diagnosis is for me and how much more it has led me to know myself, to accept myself, and to show up for myself in ways that will actually help, not just potentially help.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's my joy to serve people one-on-one in coaching, as well as I have a small LDS ADHD group coaching unit as well. It's awesome.
Well, I know people personally who listened to our last podcast episode together and reached out and was like, hey, who was that person? Because I need my kid to meet with her. And I know how much it's blessed that person's life. So thank you for those of you who don't think that this is something that would benefit you or your child. Think again, because there's so much here. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. Where are we going with this conversation today, Kamden?
We're going to talk about commitment. And often when we hear that word, we think of relationships, right? Committing to a relationship. But through the context, I believe that this is going to be helpful for everyone. We all have decisions to make. We all kind of waver sometimes with our decision making or procrastinate and put things off. And yet we're missing out on a lot of things when we think that keeping our options open is the solution. What I have been learning and gleaning through my clientele, as well as just through reading and research and seminars that I've been attending, is that true life satisfaction comes when we are willing to commit, willing to dedicate our life to something. And I'd love to highlight some of the barriers that keep us from committing, keep us from dedicating ourselves, so that maybe we can rework that and then add some solutions toward the end as well.
Oh, like I hear the word commitment and it's so funny. Like it just kind of makes you a little bit like nervous. And I don't know if it has that same effect on everybody, but boy, it does for me. Commitments are like instantly I have skin in the game. And so then you're instantly like afraid of what could or couldn't happen. And anyway, so
well, we live in a world that's very quick to cancel people.
Oh yeah.
And so to me, it totally makes sense that we would have some pushback with the word commitment, that we're going to be tying ourselves to something outside of ourselves. And so therefore, we don't feel like we have complete control over that association. And that fear is what does keep a lot of people from committing in the first place, is what if I feel betrayed, or what if the thing I commit myself to shifts or changes and I don't want to shift and change? Or what if something is happening in the background that I don't know about when I commit to something? And so they're all valid reasons. And yet the alternative of not committing is still not nearly as satisfactory as our brain tells us it probably might be.
Yeah, that is such a good point. And as you were saying, like we're connected to something outside of us, I had this realization that it's interesting that it makes me nervous because I have learned, and one of the things we do as coaches is to teach people that it's not the things outside of us, that we don't need to give them control over our lives. And when we learn how to not let the things outside of us affect us in ways that halt us or keep us stuck, that is where true progression is. So like we need those commitments just in the very essence of like making those commitments almost forces us to learn how to not let the things outside of us control us.
Yeah, it gives us a playing field, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I have a client, a former client, and we got to a point, we've been working months together, and got to a point where I knew that he needed some healing, some therapy in order to continue to progress with me in terms of a coach. And so I recommended a therapist to this individual. And he came back a month or so later, and he articulated very well what I was hoping that he would get from me.
Yeah.
But he heard it differently through his therapist, which was excellent.
Well, to be fair, he probably needed to heal those things
in order
in
to
a
hear
way,
it.
in order to hear that, right? Like
Yeah,
that
precisely.
which is exactly why you sent him there, which good for you.
Capacity opens up when we heal our wounds. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that insight. I agree. His comment to me, because he was really struggling, he has ADHD, and he's really struggling to commit, to follow through, to stick to the plan, to stick to what he actually wanted. So we'd envision things, we'd break them down into priorities, we'd step by step, all the things that you do for someone with ADHD whose prefrontal cortex doesn't do it for them. All those, break down the steps and lay it out nicely in front of them. And yet week after week, the progress was either very minimal, which is not a problem, but also halted. And as a coach, when you start to see that over time, is that the same pattern is coming up over and over again, you ask, what's going on here? Is this something bigger than me? And so when he came back a couple of months later, he said, Kamden, I realized I was giving too much time to my values and not enough time to the actions that create my life purpose.
That's a pretty deep insight.
It was amazing. I have used it so much since then. And I don't know if it was an exact quote from his therapist or something that he brought together, but it was very articulate, very concise. And I love that sentiment tied with what we're talking about today, that when we want to commit to something, it is our values in action. And commitment allows us to find life purpose. But if we stay in our head and we just think about the things we want to do and the things we want to act upon, we're going to be very unsatisfied because it never accumulates into action. It never pushes us to actually do the thing. And in the ADHD world, in the neurotypical world, when we do the thing, that's when the learning happens. Because in our brain, there's an infinite number of things that could happen, but is never solidified. And so therefore our learning is not nearly as solidified as it is when we do, which is pretty cool.
That is really cool. And I can see so many applications for it. I can see applications for it in personal relationships with different people in our lives, right? Anybody that we have a commitment with, particularly like a spousal relationship. But we also have commitments with things that are not necessarily people. Like we have religion that we have, many of us here have made a commitment to. And whether we know it or not, that is a relationship. Our commitment, that connection with us in religion is a relationship, just as we have a relationship with God. But that's different than our relationship with religion, right?
Yes.
Like they're separate things. And
I actually have a quote about that is so awesome. So hopefully this won't take me too long, but it's right here okay, here it is. You ready? This is Pete Davis. He wrote a book called Dedicated. He also wrote a book called The Case for Commitment in an Age of Infinite Browsing. Oh no, that's the same one. He did write another book. But there is, I just saw him recently speak. I listened to a couple of his podcasts and it's really sparked something in me. And this is about 3 sentences long. Okay. Overcoming the fear of regret starts with lowering the stakes. It helps to remember that not every commitment is an existential saga and that not all commitments have to be permanent. Commitments are relationships. And relationships are like living things, and living things die. When life has gone out of a commitment, it's no longer a relationship. It's just a dead rule. It's good to take on relationships and invest in them. It's good to work and heal relationships when they are sick. But when they are dead, they are dead. There's something morbid about placating what's not there anymore. So when you talked about that, I love how if we can think about it as a life, as commitment, as a relationship, even when it's my commitment to my faith, my commitment to my soccer team, my commitment to, whatever it might be, but we can either breathe life into it through our action. We can heal it. I love that one. I think as coaches, we help people, we give space for people to heal. Maybe not in the sense of therapy, but in the sense of like, here's some space. Consider that you're not either in or out. Consider that there is a space to heal. And that there's a time to say, I did commit to that. And now that is done. I no longer need to be burdened by that. What freedom then it gives us to feel okay and feel excited about dedicating ourselves to a work when we see it as life and having a lifespan as well. So cool.
It's very cool. You're going to have some people who are going to listen to this and be like, wait, are you saying then that like it's okay if I feel like my relationship with religion is dead and complete?
Yeah.
And yes, the answer is
yes.
And that's scary for a lot of people to grapple with that. But I think that's when you have to delve into your relationship with God and really come to know him and our Heavenly Mother as they truly are and what their true nature is. Because in doing that, I think that heals the struggle we have with that question, or like the judgment that we have when somebody decides that religion is no longer for them.
I have found that people that really do work on this, and it is work. It is work. when they work to say that was a chapter of my life that now I'm moving on, if they have done that deep work and if they are with people that they feel safe to talk about it, they're wonderful humans. What I mean is they show up as their best selves because this part of them has healed. This part of them is no longer a threat to them. It is simply a past chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the resentment and the anger and the hard-heartedness and which is a very scriptural phrase, whatever, but a lot of that, so many people still carry. I feel so deeply for them who do hurt because I know that those are wounds that are still bleeding. If we want to bring this back to why people don't commit, is because when we do commit, that means that it's going to require something of us.
Mm-hmm.
But in that requirement, don't we all learn and grow? Whether that takes us deeper into the gospel, whether that takes us broader into the gospel, maybe outside of our own religious circles, even of
Mm-hmm.
like, what is God? Kind of like what you were saying. God is not to be contained within an organization. But when we can commit ourselves to that, it's a starting point by which we can build and we can grow. I think last time we talked about scaffolding,
Mm-hmm.
that the organized religion becomes a scaffolding by which we can navigate from. It's our origin, our 0,
Mm-hmm.
right? But so in a similar element here, the thing that hurts the most when we feel betrayed, that requires the healing so that we can show up confident, so that we can show up healed, started first with a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if we don't commit, our growth and our healing process, we don't come out as that, as confident, as strong, as healed, as well-versed human on the other side of it. Maybe we avoided some hurt, some pain, but is that really the point? Or is it to learn how to grow through the discomfort?
For sure. And I think also, like, as committed Christians, like, we have made a commitment with God and with our Savior Jesus Christ. Part of that commitment is to love like them, which means that, like, when people are choosing, like, if someone chooses, or, like, that relationship is complete and they choose to leave organized religion, that is painful for a lot of people who love them and choose, and are choosing to stay. But I think because we have made it's even more important, because we have made commitments to love like Christ, that we grapple with that discomfort of watching other people shift in their commitments, or say, close a chapter in their commitments. We've committed to work through that as well. We've committed to love people through that. And that means that we're going to be pretty uncomfortable too, trying to work through that, in not, in not judging, and trying to be understanding and accepting, and loving people through their struggles, and then their healing, and wherever that might take them.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that when we understand each other's humanity and agency, more than just, oh, we all have our agency.
Mm-hmm.
More than that, but we truly believe and trust that they think what they are doing and they believe what they are doing is the best, then go for it. I got a text this week of someone letting me know that they were separating from their spouse. And my response, like, obviously, I love both these people very much, but it was, how can I help?
Yeah.
Please know how much I love you both. This must be a really tough and kind of difficult time for you both. Maybe kind of awkward, maybe kind of painful. I want you to know that you're in my heart. You're in my prayers.
Yeah.
I'm here for you. Right? It wasn't, well, who did what? And she said this and he did that.
Or are you sure? Like, so are you sure? Like,
yeah, I wasn't there to fix it.
Yeah, right.
And, my kids are all still young, and I have many siblings that are outside of the church now. And so I haven't been that parent, but I also feel like and this is actually a piece of commitment and dedication that I found so helpful, is that coming from a place of faith, the hope and the trust in God is so integrated in how I approach my relationships and how we can approach our relationships, that it's less personal. It stings less when people make decisions that we don't think are, or that we personally wouldn't make. Maybe that's even.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we don't not choose something just because 10 years from now we might decide to unchoose it. Because hopefully in those 10 years, the person that we become, the life that we gain and choose and learn from, is exactly the person that the world needs 10 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
is the hope. And that, putting that on God, putting that on the perspective that I can't have as a mortal being, is so alleviating to me, when we think that we're actually the one that has the power to keep a marriage together that's outside of my own marriage, as though I would be able to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they asked for opinions, possibly, like, I maybe could give them my opinion with that caveat that it was my opinion, but that's not what they were asking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were informing. And so when I can put that on God as a Christian, as a human that uses their faith, man, it really alleviates that discomfort or that fear.
Yeah.
Doesn't take it away, but it certainly
No.
alleviates it.
No. And isn't it interesting? And this is what I hear so many times from clients when people in their lives are choosing to do things that they wouldn't choose to do. They're like, I feel like if I just go on as if, nothing's happened, or that I agree, if I don't say anything that would let them know that I don't agree with their choices, that I'm condoning the choices that they're making. Like, I'm saying that it's okay. And that is that's a place that's coming from fear, right? That comes all from fear that we won't be able to, I don't know, that we don't trust the other person. It's like, there's a whole lot of things wrapped up in that, meaning like, I don't trust them. I know it's better for them. I don't know. I just think that it's funny that we always go straight to that. Well, I have to say something, or they'll think that I think it's okay what they're doing.
Yeah, hopefully our life is very clear to them. It's probably what we believe.
Yeah.
By our actions, what we've done for years and years and years, that they might not even need to ask. And if they do ask, or if they persist, then asking for permission, to say, are you interested in maybe a different perspective?
Yeah.
And if they say no, then okay, no problem. We'll know that I'm here for you. It's because I always kind of have this back and forth balance, and I won't get on a tangent too much here, of, man, people have given me great advice in the past that have really helped me direct me, and so not missing out on that. But I also feel like most of those times they didn't come up to me and say, I'm going to give Kamden a piece of advice. It was mostly just, they're just chatting with me, and I heard what I needed to hear. And I took, even maybe sometimes by the Spirit, that the Spirit taught me what their words might mean for my personal situation. So to me, that says, are you a friend? Are you somebody who is committed to your values and to your covenants and to the things that you believe? And do you show up as that person? All right, then you're good. Like, I mean, act on your promptings, of course, but we don't need to overcomplicate it. And I definitely know what you're talking about, that almost feeling like you actually can change things.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we do say helpful things.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's not so formal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Going back to like this committed and dedicated, I think about those of us who love our faith. And that doesn't mean that we love all the pieces of religion, but we love our faith. and we find strength here as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And yet, a lot of the time within this coaching community as well, that means that we ask hard questions and that we're facing challenges. And So what then? How do we commit and dedicate and also have big questions? Is that even allowed? And so the reason why I'm talking about this today is because I've been really studying about ADHD and how organized religion is hard for people with ADHD, and it's also a gift for people with ADHD. And they are both. Surprise, surprise. There's dichotomy and duality.
In
Always.
everything, in everything.
Everything.
Yep.
And so for us, where this is where we, for the foreseeable future and into eternity, for many of us, this is where we plant our roots. And this is where we are, and we love our people, and we love the imperfection of everything, and this is where we resonate. What then happens when we don't agree with everything? Well, Pete Davis, that same person, gave permission that you don't commit to something because you love 100% of what they do. You don't commit to a person because I didn't commit to my husband because I thought he was a perfect person. Like or that I even agreed with all of his opinions and how he spends his time. And that's not why I committed to him. It's because it was the right fit. And I knew he was going to help me get to where I wanted to go. And he was the person I wanted to be on the train with as we were going there, or when we pivoted. And so, yeah, Pete Davis, he gave that permission that commitment doesn't mean that as soon as something, a red flag comes up, that you just jet. Commitment means you anticipate red flags will come and you know why you're still there. For someone with ADHD, I think that can alleviate a lot of analysis paralysis, is what we talk about. And I think a lot of people can relate to that as well. But when we know that in our commitment, there is no perfectionism. In our commitment, we can anticipate imperfect people and decisions and situations. The inner commitment, we can focus more on the value of what we want so that we can get into the actions within a constraint or a context that will support us in our growth. And that alleviates, once again, a lot of the pressure and the unneeded stress that comes up with committing and dedicating ourselves to something, especially the gospel and the church.
I think what you've just said is wraps so many things up into a nutshell. First of all, we all have, our whole lives are made of relationships, right? Like that's why we're here. We're here to be in relationship with other people, to learn, to experience that feeling of love. I really think that's what it's all about, for us to learn how to feel that and to allow ourselves to feel that. And then it's like, oh, this feels so good. I want to be able to experience this feeling of love for eternity, right? Like that's why we're here. And with every single person that we have a relationship with, we are never going to agree 100% with all of them. And so if we just ran from every relationship that we didn't think we agreed with 100%, we would be an island. Like there would be, and we would not get to experience that feeling of love for anybody. So this is something that we have to figure out how to be
I think so.
with. Yes.
I think so. And it is uncomfortable. We think of the word like Zion, right? It is one heart and one mind, as the scriptures lay out for us. And we think that one heart and one mind means that it's always thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. And you know what?
Right?
That sounds terrible to me. Like, I don't want
Absolutely
any part of that.
Terrible. No. And I can't remember if I brought this up on the last podcast, but it's visually for me as though I was playing a melody, a note at a time, versus playing the same melody with coordinating harmonies and movements behind it, right? Is what Zion is. One heart and one mind. We're all playing the same song, but we could just do it singularly, one note at a time, all saying, oh, the same thing. Or we could have this incredible orchestra playing behind us. And it's a visual that's been very, very helpful for my faith, very helpful for my commitment, very helpful for why I choose to still and love my membership in this church.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because I'm supposed to be like everyone else. It's because what I bring and trusting what other people bring and dedicate to this common cause is exactly what is creating Zion, that Zion is in our differences, but is in the song that we orchestrate together.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, we've all had that experience of listening to like a big musical production and, like the trumpets get me every time when like the big brass comes in and you're just like, imagine what it would be like without that. Like
or if it was only the brass trumpets.
Yes. That is such a great visual. So thank you for sharing that. This is something that I think is timely for all of us. We're not going to agree in our societies, in our religion, and all in our communities. It's in our families.
I don't think we're supposed to all the time. That's what's so interesting. The more that I study interfaith work and peacemaking work, our prophet is constantly talking about peacemaking.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about getting everyone to agree on the same thing. Peacemaking, which Jesus Christ taught in parables, why did he teach in the parables? Is so people could find their peace for themselves.
Yeah.
Because man, me growing up in California as a white woman is very different than someone in the middle of China, like the kids that I taught online, I taught English to, and their upbringing, they're very different upbringings.
Yeah.
And so where their peace is going to be found is highly influenced by their lives. What they dedicate themselves to is highly influenced by their upbringing and what was modeled for them and just their life experiences. So to say that I'm supposed to be the same as one of my students in China is absurd and really quite demeaning to the whole human experience on this earth. So yet we keep this fear in the back of our mind that keeps us from commitment. Oh, I'll keep my options open because, wow, the way that my Chinese students do it, really, really good. So what about if I find something else that's equally as good? I can't commit to something because what if I change my mind instead of, let me try that out. Let me go for that and keep going with it. So
it's exhausting.
Yeah.
That's exhausting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Tell me more. You tell me more about that.
No, I'm just sitting here thinking this will sound very like surface level, but I think it explains this very well. So there's a small corner in my kitchen that I want to wallpaper. And which seems crazy to me. I never thought I would want to wallpaper anything, but I wallpapered this wall behind me. You guys,
it's really pretty. Yeah, I just bought wallpaper this week.
Yeah, I have spent hours looking through different wallpapers online, like so many hours instead of just like, but I'm not committing and I'm not making a decision. And so
then what are the thoughts behind it? You're going to help us all out a lot if you tell us what your thoughts are behind this.
Well, first of all, I'm wasting my time. Like, look at all the hours that I have wasted trying to pick wallpaper. And then I'm like, oh, but if I pick this, then like when I put up my Christmas decorations, then it's not going to it's not going to match. If I do this one, then it might look good, but maybe I'll get sick of it. Like there's so many things that are going through my mind. Oh, is that color?
You might waste some money.
Oh yeah, this is going to and the work it's going to cost. Like if I decided 3 years that I'm tired of it, then I'm going to have like, what do you do? Do you have to take wallpaper down or can you just paint over it? Like, I don't know. So there's
unknowns.
Yep. All the things. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what if the anchor, so going back to like our original thing, if the anchor was that you took away all the other things, right? You said, I don't have to worry about Christmas. I don't mind losing $500 for three years worth of aesthetic, whatever it might be. If I can shoo all of those out, then what am I left with? I want a pop of color. I want some texture. I want some depth. I want something fun. I don't know what you're going for there, but what are you going for? And that's actually on my list of how to overcome decision fatigue is clarifying personal values and goals. And sometimes that can help go to our detriment because nothing is exactly what we want, we feel like, or our wants, change over time. But I often just say I'm queen of good enough. And that doesn't mean that I don't live up to my potential. It just means that I'm flexible. I'm queen of good enough. And so if I can clarify what my value is, I'm redoing my entire office upstairs. I'm building bookshelves, built-ins. I just ordered wallpaper. I can totally, relate to what you're saying. And it just came to a point I'm like, I'm just going to put some paint up there. It's just going to be good enough.
Yeah.
And if I absolutely hate it, then I'm going to change it. But I will not know until I put the paint on the bookshelves. I won't know. Like I have samples, but you won't know until you're all in it.
Yeah.
And most of the time, like Pete Davis has brought to my attention, most of the time it's not going to be life or death. Most of the time it's not going to be an existential crisis. Within organized religion, I think we put a lot of weight on the role of the church in our life. And you brought this up. It's between us and God. The church is there as the scaffolding. It brings great insight and joy in life. I'm so thankful for the consistency, like I've said before, of every 7 days, I get to check in. If I forgot for the last 7 days, at least I know 7's going to roll around again. It's really helpful for people with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
At least I know that. So let's not make this so weighty that we throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to gain from being with a cause, from being with a people, being with a community, having our origin at 0, and then building what we want. There's so much direction from constraining down to something that we commit to and then building from there. We don't need to keep our options open. It's not going to help us progress. So whatever that might be in. And Jody Moore just said a couple weeks ago, I can't remember what podcast it was, but I loved how she said, highlighted, indecision is a decision.
Oh, yeah.
So, and like you said, it's making you sick. It's making you exhausted in the indecision. Is that what you want for forever? Nausea. Or are you willing to just try something, to commit, to decide and see what happens from there? I feel like it's so much easier to pivot when you're on a trajectory than it is when you're standing still. Just going in circles.
Yeah. So true. Okay. Before we go, I think it would be really helpful for people to, like you mentioned some of the, one thing or maybe two things about how we can reduce this decision fatigue, how we can make commitments easier in our lives. Can you just give us those bullet points?
Absolutely. Okay, so we've already talked about clarifying our personal values and goals. So you're thinking about your core values, your clear goals. This is going to help reduce your uncertainty, your indecision. A lot of the time, like I was just at Disneyland with my family, and it's like, what do I got? What ice cream? What ice cream did I get? And just like the chaos and overstimulation, right? And I'm like, cold. We want something that's cold. So it doesn't matter what you choose because you're going to put it in your mouth and it's going to be delicious and cold because it's 90 degrees out,
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I said that, oh, I want the Mickey Mouse one. Oh, I want the frozen lemonade because now it fulfills the value.
Right.
Okay. Number 2 is to set a boundary and limit choices, which we talked about with the wallpaper, right? Like set the boundary. I'm no longer going to think of Christmas and the clashing. Like that's not even on the table. My decor doesn't need to match my house. My house just is what it is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to set that. We call that constraint a lot of the time in the ADHD world. Like you're all over the place. Where can we constrain? Where can we put up our bumpers? It's going to help with preventing analysis paralysis of circling, circle. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Third thing is adopting a long-term focus. And some elements with my clientele, they are visionaries. They can see into the future. They know exactly what it's going to feel like, and it's just going to feel satisfying, and it's going to be in their gut, and they're going to love the way that whatever they're envisioning feels. But then it's hard for them to break down the little pieces to get there. And in fact, when they start to break down the little pieces, it's helpful, but it also is so horrifically boring that they hate it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that long-term focus of knowing that the terribly boring actions now, the small ones, is the only way that you'll be able to get to the long-term focus. Connecting that thought is everything. We feel like the satisfactory long-term focus is how it's supposed to feel in the moment. And that's why we're constantly dissatisfied. Because most of life, while I am a huge proponent of joy and optimism and peace, a lot of life is just monotonous. It's just you got to do it. So adopting the long-term focus and knowing that it doesn't have to feel as exciting as you see it in your dreams in the moment. And then building in accountability, which I love. We do something called body doubling in the ADHD world. It allows us to follow the momentum and the energy and the spirit of the people that we are with, working alongside. We don't even have to do the same thing, but we're working alongside usually monotonous things like typing up emails, cleaning the house. But those small steps that we wouldn't normally want to do ourselves, we have a built-in accountability partner that can help us get them done. And in commitment, I love callings. I love church callings, even though we hate them with ADHD too, because there's like expectations. But look at what a great source of built-in accountability to have presidency meetings and to have teachers that you can outsource to in primary and to have stake leaders that you're accountable to. Like the whole framework is accountability partners all over the place. To have ward council that meets once a week is, even though you might hate it, it is a really beautiful scaffolding that can help you remind yourself of your goals, why you're meeting together. When it's done the right way, it can really be beneficial and helpful. So those are the 4 I got for you.
Those are awesome. And I think so helpful for every single person, not like you
Absolutely.
said, just people who are ADHD. And then the more I listen to this conversation, I'm like, maybe I need to get diagnosed. Maybe I have a
Maybe you
diagnosis
do.
here.
I don't know.
I don't know. Oh gosh. Kamden, thank you so much. I love these conversations. I can dig deep into like the crossover of religion and life coaching and I love it so much. So thank you for
Me
being
too.
here. And this is something that I think everybody can benefit from. So thank you for all that you
Yeah, I'm a human too. I'm not just an ADHD human.
Yeah.
I'm actually a human.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Having human experiences.
Living in this world with everybody else where we're having different yet similar experiences in just different ways. So, all right. Before we leave, can you share with people how they can connect with you?
Yeah, real easy. Just go to KamdenADHDcoaching.com. All of my socials are there. Podcast is there. Sign up for discovery calls there with me, etc.
Awesome. Okay. We'll link to that in the show notes. And thank you. Yep.
Yeah, so fun.
Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.